Welcome to Kentucky Horsepower, the official podcast of the Kentucky Automobile Dealers Association.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Kentucky Horsepower Podcast. We're excited to welcome you today, and we're very excited to welcome Lauren Bailey from ComplyAuto. Hi, Lauren. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yes. We are going to talk today about our upcoming KDU virtual class on OSHA compliance, which I think is a captivating topic for everyone. Tell us a little bit about what we have to look forward to in our OSHA podcast and how fun you're going to make it.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun because I'm not like other attorneys. I'm a cool attorney. And so I can't possibly give a class or do a podcast that isn't rooted in fun. So
I feel personally attacked by that.
But it's going to highlight the importance of safety in the dealership. And I'm going to say something controversial. And I'm going to say it on this podcast. You know, OSHA is not this huge bad guy. OSHA is not what you should be worried about. Or in Kentucky, you know, it's chaos. OSHA is there to help, and their standards should be a minimum. What dealers should be really concerned about is the safety culture at their workplace. Because what's worse than an OSHA fine or an OSHA inspection is losing a tech or having an injury or having a disgruntled employee report you to OSHA so that they come out. And so when you build that safety culture and keep your employees safe, using the OSHA standards as maybe as like a minimum, then you'll have a much better, happier, productive workplace.
And that's a good point. I mean, I know we kind of joke around about OSHA, blah, but honestly, there's not a dealer in the state, or I would say in the country, that wants to have a workplace accident, that wants to have workplace illnesses, that wants to see their people hurt, of course. But I think sometimes the breadth of the rules can be overwhelming for folks.
Absolutely.
So,
you know, they don't write these rules for, you know, average people to read them and understand them. They write them to keep attorneys like me and you in business, so that you have to hire them to tell you what OSHA is saying or give you advice. They just are not written in plain English.
So what sort of things are you going to cover with us on September 16th for our virtual class?
So I'm going to cover, you know, the top OSHA violations, both federally and in Kentucky. And I'm going to cover, you know, what Auto Safety has to help you get ahead of those violations. I'm going to talk about what happens in a workplace accident, like what the true costs are. Like, yes, the OSHA fine is set by statute, but what about a workers' comp claim? What about having to rehire an employee? But what about having to train that employee? You know, techs these days are very, very, very valuable. And it's
yes.
You can just call up the tech store and order another one to your dealership. You're going to have to put them through the training. So we're going to talk about all of those things, how to avoid having a workplace that isn't safe, and the top things you need to look out for if OSHA does come by.
All right, good. And that's something I know with ComplyAuto, you guys are a great partner to us to start with. But a lot of what we talk about with you is FTC compliance and deal jackets and that sort of thing. So I think probably a lot of our listeners don't know you as a safety resource. So tell us a little bit about that.
So, you know, I want to think of ComplyAuto as like a full service compliance company for dealerships, whether it be those privacy compliance or safety compliance, you know, a one-stop shop for everything a dealership needs. I guess I should back up. Why should you even listen to me about safety? I worked at NADA for 15 years. And when I started at NADA, I did all of their federal safety outreach and advocacy. And so that was with federal OSHA. And maybe in the class, I'll show a picture of me actually testifying before OSHA from a long time ago. I have fewer wrinkles, I have longer hair, but so I did all of that at NADA. And so I have a lot of background in safety and working with OSHA. And so I want you to think of Comply as being that resource, because we have so many experts on staff who worked in dealerships, who worked in dealer trade associations, and who are ready to make compliance easy for our dealer customers.
What do you think are the areas in a dealership that are most commonly kind of overlooked by dealers, right? We know about the shop and the garage and the critical importance of safety there, but what is often overlooked by dealers who are working on their OSHA compliance?
So the number one OSHA citation, and this is true in Kentucky or any federal OSHA or any other state plan, is compliance with HAZCOM, and that is your safety data sheets that talk about all the chemicals that an employee may be exposed to in the workplace. And if you're an old timer like me, you'd remember that the safety data sheets used to be all in a binder, and you'd have to get them all together in paper form, and you could put them on a shelf, and then when OSHA showed up, they'd make sure that they all matched. We've advanced a little now, and the safety data sheets are stored by ComplyAuto Safety in an online dashboard, so it's easy not just for compliance, but to make sure that you're following the intent of the law, which is not just to collect paper or have a paperwork burden, but to make sure that employees have easy access to the chemicals they might be exposed to in the workplace. And so we make it very, very easy for that.
Excellent. All right. What else? What's your other plug? What do dealers who, I know that they are all going to log on and they're going to register for our class on September 6th.
And they should.
If they can't, what is the takeaway from this podcast?
The takeaway is, again, the very controversial thing. OSHA compliance should be your baseline. The safety culture in your dealership should be as important, or if not more important, to keeping your workers safe. There is a monetary cost with any kind of accident or injury that happens, but that is definitely mitigated by having a culture of safety in your workplace.
All right. Last question. I know you have a hard stop in a little bit. Talk to me, and we're entering into the lawyer nerd phase of this
let's do
podcast.
it. I'm ready for this.
Talk about the interplay between federal OSHA and Kentucky OSHA, because a lot of people kind of conflate them, and they're different.
Yes.
But also they overlap.
So OSHA as an agency, I'll just say this, and this will be controversial too. They actually are one of the most helpful agencies out there. They run their OSHA consultation program, which Kentucky OSHA has their own. Well, they will actually come inspect your dealership and tell you everything that's wrong. And then they won't go next door and narc to enforcement. They will keep it completely separate. And I don't really know of another agency, at least a federal agency, that does that. Like, you can't invite the FTC in and say, oh, could you just look around and tell us what's wrong, without immediately getting enforcement actions. So
right.
They do a good job. And one of the things that OSHA does is they allow states to have their own safety plans. And many states have taken them up on this, and the state plans have to be at least as stringent as OSHA, but they can have a lot of different variations. I know Kentucky has lower fines for OSHA violations than federal OSHA, and that's, even though the regulations are just as stringent, they have those lower fines because that's what's right for Kentucky and what Kentucky put in statute. I know you guys even had a bill this year that required Kentucky OSHA to not be more stringent than federal OSHA. So it really gives the power back to the states and what's best for the states. And OSHA, fully supports having these state plans.
And the logic to that is every state has its own industry, right? Right. Kentucky, we've got coal, we've got agriculture. Probably don't see that in a Rhode Island, in a Delaware,
So that's a good point. It allows the safety inspectors and the enforcement to focus on what's important to that locality. Whereas federal OSHA, they'll have local emphasis programs that will cover like an entire region, where you may have those different industries, but the state plans can really hone in on where there is a problem in the state. And doing that at the same time kind of gives the good employers, the low hazard employers, a break from expecting an OSHA inspection, because they'll know where the high hazard industries are in the state and where the state enforcement is going.
All right. Thanks, Lauren, for being here. Any other parting words for our guests?
I do. I want to give my favorite stat, and I say this all the time. So if anyone has, heard me talk about OSHA, they've heard me say this. Here's the question. Do you know how often a dealer can expect to be inspected by OSHA if they don't have any complaints, if they don't have any accidents? How often will OSHA come and do an inspection? It's a pop quiz.
No, you didn't tell me there was going to be a quiz, Lauren.
A pop quiz.
Oh, Lord. 3 times a year.
That's a wrong answer.
Usually that's how I perform on pop quizzes. Thanks.
A dealer can expect to be inspected by OSHA once every 100 years.
What? It would have taken me a long time to get there. So
that's what I'm saying. An OSHA inspection, you should be ready for it and prepared, because maybe your time is up. But OSHA is not this big bad guy, and there are other very important safety things that you can do in your dealership.
I thought you were going to say there are many more bad guys that you should be concerned about, which is also
many more bad guys. There are tons of more bad guys, but OSHA, I'm going to give them a break and say they actually do care about worker safety and are trying to help out industry with any of their enforcement.
All right. Well, thanks, Lauren. We are all looking forward to you on September the 16th. That's at 10 a.m. It's a virtual class, guys. I will include in the podcast notes a link to register for it. So we can't wait to see you then. And thanks so much.
Great. Thanks. See you then.
Bye.